Let's start now with the overview from the group moderators, starting from group one. We had a little bit of problem in the beginning to start with. It got a little bit delayed, and some people had problem joining. So I don't know who actually facilitated. Is that Babaji or Lucia who did that? But please, please, can I request whoever had done it to report back?
Maybe I would like Babar start and complement with some points that were raised at the beginning of the group discussion. Shall we do that?
Okay, yeah, please. And you have 5 minutes. Babaji, can you start?
Yes, Arunji, I will just quickly reflect back on the group's opinions about the three key questions. We had assigned them to share their responses. In response to the first question about the type of assessment frameworks, approaches, methods, and practices, the participants' opinion that the framework, whichever we use, should be adaptive in its nature. I mean, it should help, uh, adapt to the change, not specifically to the climate change, but also other type of socioeconomic and ecological changes as well. The other suggestion came from the group work that the framework that we use for WEFE nexus assessment in the HKH region must be integrated and inclusive in its planning and assessment approach, with a focus especially on the smallholders and their needs on the grounds should address. In response to the question 2, where we had asked them that what type of outputs they desire from the assessment to deliver upon in terms of resource assessment, evaluation of scenarios, and response to specific policy questions. The responses we got from the group was that the assessment should mainly focus on the issues, nexus issues, and nexus solutions. And they also suggested the nexus to focus on solutions from the HKH region that ICIMOD and other partners have already tried, tested, and developed. And that needs to be upscaled and outscaled. Another important suggestion was that one of the outputs from this assessment should be a clear identification and linkages with the SDGs, which are most relevant to HKH region, particularly poverty, hunger, ecosystem management, and etc. One other suggestion in response to this question was the institutional ownership. One of the outputs from this assessment should help change the institutional culture, to break the silos deafness. They should think of working together with other sectors and come up with agreed solutions for all the four elements of the WEFE nexus. Another suggestion as an outcome was that based on the complexities of the WEFE nexus in HKH region, we should focus on developing a clarity to remove the confusion that may exist between the integrated water resource management and the WEFE nexus approach. And the last response from the group was that the decision, this assessment should not limit to the analysis of the situation on the ground, but it should also help develop decision pathways, the processes for its operationalization and implementation on the ground. And in response to the third question, which was more about asking for the frameworks and the methods and practices specifically for the HKH region, again, there was a generic response that the UNECE proposed WEFE nexus assessment, 6-step nexus assessment, could be one of the potential frameworks to be used with some modification in the HKH region. The second suggestion came from the group was that the framework should place emphasis on multi-stakeholder engagement. It should not merely, engage the public sector institutions. Rather, it should engage private sector, communities, and academia as well. And third response against this question was uh, maybe we cannot adopt one single framework or one method for the entire HKH. We may have an opportunity or an option to go for as area-specific methods and practices. Like the situation across the HKH varies greatly. One method applicable to one part of the HKH region may not be applicable as such to the other part of the region. As some of the speakers in the beginning also said that the climatic, agricultural, and social systems vary greatly across the HKH region because of different factors and different situations. The situation of Afghanistan is totally different from the situation of Myanmar or the Eastern Himalayas. And that's why they propose to have methods defined is in accordance with the needs and ground realities of the areas, of the different areas in the HKH region. So thank you, Arunji. This was, we had no, quite short time for the group discussion, but I'm thankful to the group members for their reflections and views.
Yeah,
this was,
but nevertheless, I think the discussion was very rich from what you have just reported. Lucia, you said no additional reporting needed from your side. Okay. I think everything was covered by Babarji. Okay, then, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, both of you. Now let's move to the second group. And Sunita, may I request you to give us a bit of highlight? Oh, you have a slide. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Arun. Thank you all the group members of Group 2, where we discussed the challenges and also the potential solution. We ran out of time to wrap up and to have the final discussion, but I think it would go for 2 hours. So in terms of challenges, the main challenge we discussed was about the scale. So many people and a lot of us realize that the scale is really a problem, whether it has the river basin scale or whether it would be in the transboundary scale. So that would be the major challenge for implementation of the WEFE nexus in the region. And with this also comes the vertical and the horizontal collaboration and cooperation between the different sectors, but also like between the different countries, like upstream countries and the downstream countries. So that will be a challenge. Sorry. Babarji? Yeah. Dr. Arun, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing
yes,
you. We can see the slide, but also it's not full frame, but that's okay. Please continue. Yeah, it's now there. Please continue.
Yeah, with the issue of vertical and horizontal collaboration, we also talked that the multi-level governance would be another challenge because we already have the concept of the silo approach, the sectoral approach, and when it comes to transdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, we are always trying to find our safe area. So we are pushed towards that. So it's gonna be very challenging for the WEFE nexus. And also another one was about the traditional knowledge and culture. We are focusing so much on the new technology and other things, but at the same time, we are losing the traditional values, the culture that are attached with the water, with biodiversity, ecosystem, and also food. So that has to be reflected very well. And if lost, we need to survive and sustain them. And we need to have that particular emphasis in the WEFE nexus. And that also links to another one about the gender and social lens lacking in the WEFE nexus or somehow not well reflected. So we need to highlight that aspect in WEFE nexus too. So Deepak sir also talked about we should not get stuck into one pathway. We need to have multiple collaboration, and we need to think different options. So we do not need to get stuck into one pathway and explore the other options and collaborations. What I found others challenging is the politics. This region is so vibrant and so vivid for the politics with the conflicts, politics, and others. So that's why the political economy of different sectors, but also the countries should also be considered when it will be implemented beyond the country at the transboundary or the river basin scale. So political economy. The other one was about the lack of support, because WEFE nexus is so much at the conceptual stage. We do not have good political support. We do not have good guidelines for nexus implementation. There is no clarity. Someone is saying this framework is applicable. The others are saying the other frameworks are applicable. So there is no clarity, and we need to further focus on the clarity issues. The other one, I think we already discussed about the sectoral approach, or also the power relations, not with the different stakeholders, but also the country power relation in this region is very important. The other one is the resources, the financial resources and the human resources are going to be the critical component also for the WEFE nexus. So if we really want to implement, we need to plan this very well in terms of financial resources and also the human resources, because many of the implementers, I think, find this WEFE nexus very academic, but not very ground oriented. So we need to make it very simple and to be implemented on the ground. So I think in solution, I already talked a little bit about this. So one was like, there are so many issues and very integrated and multidimensional. So we were talking that we need to identify each specific issue. And for the each specific issue, we need to plan action to address that issue accordingly. The other one is like, we talk a lot about the WEFE nexus, but there is like hardly any evidence to support the nexus synergies. So we need to have that evidence-based claim, and then advocate the WEFE nexus at the different scale and across the different sector. We also talked about intersectoral group in each ministry, because this is multisectoral. So if there will be an intersectoral group in each ministry, and above that, if there will be a coordination mechanism to collaborate and integrate with this ministry, that would be really good for the implementation on the ground, but also at the policy level. The other one was like, we need to identify the tools to calculate the benefits, but also at the same time, we need to calculate and also quantify the cost associated with the WEFE nexus. And the other one was the interest actors, because what we were discussing is not all actors are interested in the WEFE nexus. Some may find it very difficult. So then we need to find the interest actors and convince them to have this implemented for have positive outcomes on different 4 sectors. The other one is the stakeholder mapping, but also we talked about the science and practice approach. And it can be a vicious cycle. We do the science and then action science and action research and then practice. And specific to mountains, we talk about whenever we apply something for this region, it should be mountain friendly. So I think these were the challenges and solutions from our side. And thank you to all the group members again. Back to you, Arun.
Yeah, thank you, Sunita. Nice summary. I think it was very clear, and it does show that you had a very rich discussion. Thank you. Very useful. Now let's go to the last group, which was moderated by Raj. So let me invite Raj to share the discussion, highlight of the discussion, Raj.
Thanks, Arun. So in our group, we were looking at how can WEFE nexus be a means for transboundary cooperation in the HKH basin, and we had a very rich discussion. And here are some of the key takeaways from the group work. First is definitely WEFE nexus provides unique opportunities to improve transboundary water cooperation. But important thing to recognize that this nexus should not be looked at as a kind of a silver bullet and treated in silo, but must be considered in conjunction with other tools and approaches. And that is something which came from the UNECE colleagues. So that is one thing to consider when you're talking about WEFE nexus in the transboundary context. The second important thing is to look at the WEFE nexus more also from the benefit sharing perspective. And there was clear example from Meghna Basin where the work has recently started in terms of identifying and trying to quantify some of the benefits so that this could initiate some kind of a dialogue around the water, energy, and food nexus and promote more bilateral cooperation on the Meghna Basin, which is a transboundary basin between India and Bangladesh. The third important point was with regard to the nexus approach being suitable in terms of addressing some of the water-related hazards like floods and droughts. And our colleague from China clearly shared an example of their ongoing work in Koshi Basin, which is a transboundary basin between India and Nepal, in terms of how WEFE nexus could basically be adopted to explore some of those links in terms of the hazards and its impact on food security, on energy, and those issues. The other important aspect that came up was in terms of a deeper analysis of the benefits, and I think that's something very critical to understand in the nexus context, because the benefits, the interlinkages, the multi-sectoral work, and most importantly, how those benefits are shared among different stakeholder groups, particularly some of the most marginalized groups. How do they benefit from any kind of nexus intervention or investment? And I think one of the thing was with regard to indigenous groups who are present in these transboundary basins or landscape that we talk about, and how could the nexus approach or intervention could be more inclusive. And I think this also came up from the point from group one. The other example where nexus has been useful in promoting transboundary cooperation came from our colleague in Pakistan, where she highlighted how this nexus thinking and approach has been used by science-based organizations from two different countries, India and Pakistan. And through these kind of research and academic collaboration, they were able to highlight the opportunities to the some of the political institutions. And when the real opportunity came in terms of more space for dialogue and engagement, they mobilized that particular political space. So Nexus research cooperation was also useful in terms of facilitating more dialogue and discussion between the political groups in this case. Unique case came from Myanmar, where it was highlighted that the whole WEFE nexus from transboundary perspective could be very different in a country like Myanmar, which has some of the longest, it has the longest civil unrest so far, and different geographies, different river areas are controlled by different ethnic minorities. So how do we look at WEFE nexus and the opportunities in this particular kind of context where different ethnic groups are located, and and their resource rights are not violated because of any kind of nexus intervention, mostly dominated by state actors, and the need to have more spaces for dialogue and participation from different groups in these kind of nexus interventions in such context. That was from Myanmar. And the other important point was with regard to the need for more consideration to some of the seasonal transboundary rivers. Quite often we talk about the big transboundary rivers like Ganges, Brahmaputra, and Meghna, and the point was made that some of these smaller seasonal rivers are also very important to local livelihood and economy. And there is the need to consider these small seasonal rivers as part of the transboundary water cooperation, including the opportunity for a more we feel like thinking in these small transboundary river basins. And the last point was with regard to looking at very specific projects. One suggestion was for the Pancheshwar multipurpose project, and whether this could be explored more in the form of an example of a WEFE approach, particularly on the water, food, and energy between two countries. And similar initiatives could be looked in the other HKH basin. So those were the key takeaways from our group. And thank you. Thanks, Arun.
Thank you, Raj. Excellent summary. I think I was in that meeting, and then the way you have summarized is really nice. Thank you. Thank you so much, Raj. And then that ends our, reporting back from the group discussion. Definitely a very rich discussion. Thanks to all the moderators and all the participants. Now, I think we are definitely half an hour late compared to what we had scheduled. So I don't want to hold you much longer. But I would like to, give a few, concluding kind of information or way forward. I think that's very important. So to start with, what are the next steps? Of course, this has been a very rich, meeting, discussion, presentation, group work. So we definitely want to document it through a short report, and we'll prepare and share with you and then finalize it. We had within the co-organizers also thought of putting out an op-ed based on what happens here. So we'll probably work on it and get it done. But the main thing is, actually ICIMOD is interested to get this, a little bit further, not just as a discussion, but also try to see what we can do in the future. And probably we are looking for an initiative or a project on WEFE nexus in the Hindukush Himalaya region. But then I think we need to have further, more intensive, more, discussion on this topic. So we are planning to organize a more focused workshop in a near future. So if you are interested, please let us know, so that we can also involve you in that kind of engagement. And some of you probably will reach out with a request, and hopefully you will agree to that. That will be very helpful in taking this idea forward in some concrete manner. I think that was also some of the concern participants had raised. So these are some of the points I wanted to mention here in terms of next steps. So with that, I come to the final and something I should not forget before closing this meeting. I wanted to mention it in the beginning, but I forgot. Sorry about that, but nevertheless I will tell it at the end. Is if you are interested to share this in social media, please use the hashtag that was in the banner. Chimi, maybe you could flash the banner once again so that people can see the hashtags. So please use those hashtags in your social media, Twitter, Facebook, whatever you use. So I come to the final part, and that's very important because organizing this sort of meeting is something that needs a lot of effort. So I want to thank the important people who have contributed, not taking names. So first of all, I would like to thank the co-organizers, OXFAM and UNECE World Convention. And here Raj and Lucia, of course, I would like to name those two names. Thank you for being with us. And I think without your contribution, this would not have been possible. I would like to thank the presenters for excellent presentations, and panelists for also very good intervention. Thank you so much. And also session and group moderators. We have rapporteurs who have been taking notes, so thanks to rapporteurs. but this would not have been possible also without a lot of support from my team members, from the admin and logistic points of view, communication, IT, and many more. Again, not taking your name, thank you very much. And most of all, I think without excellent participation, it would not have been as engaging, as fruitful as it happened today. So thanks to all the participants who participated in this webinar. So with that, we come to the end of this webinar. And of course, this is not the end. We'll be, taking this idea forward and look forward to discuss with you, get engaged with you in other occasions. Thank you.